Hey guys, retired at 40. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning and I haven't been drinking much. So there I am sitting at the freeze dryer the other day, martini in one hand, my other hand is unloading the machine, and I'm thinking to myself, why haven't I thought of this before? And that was, I've got martini and I've got freeze dryer tray. Why can't I freeze dry alcohol? So I did a little research. And I found out a couple things that are pretty important in order to make this work. And I have not tried it yet, so you're trying it for the first time with me. There's two things to take into consideration if we're going to try and make this work. Number one is, what are you freeze drying? Now, why does that matter? Well, different alcohols have different freeze temperatures. A beer, for instance, is somewhere around -25 to -30 degrees, whereas a high-grade tequila can be almost a -100 degrees. Alright, number two is also important, and that's the alcohol level in what you're freeze drying. And the reason why that makes a big difference is that kind of ties into the freeze temperature. Because something that is a higher proof, such as whiskey, say whiskey is 90 proof, that's a higher alcohol than something like a wine that's more of like a 30 to 40 proof. The reason why this matters is the amount of alcohol versus whatever the filler is that's non-alcohol, which will most likely be mostly water, is going to make a huge difference on your freeze time and, more than anything, whether it's going to work or not. So with the whole alcohol level thing, that kind of brings me to what I chose to freeze dry and why. So I live in Colorado, which is pretty much the beer capital of the world, especially microbrew. So I decided that I am not going to do anything but the best kind of beer. Colt 45, baby. That was a joke. Then I decided that wine would be a good candidate. Lots of people drink wine. Wine's a low level of alcohol. Plus it just seems like something that would reconstitute well. Kind of going along with the wine thing, I thought champagne would be interesting because champagne is so bubbly. And things that are bubbly that I've put into the freeze dryer always make for a good end product, even if it fails. Next, I gotta go with the martini, and just vodka in general. It's one of my favorite things to drink. Vodka goes with everything. If you can freeze dry vodka, you can come up with 1,000 things to mix it with. And then, why not a Bloody Mary to go with the vodka? Now, I'll tell you some of the things that I was gonna freeze dry, but I don't think will work, and I might try. If this all works, maybe I'll try it in another episode. I really wanted to try whiskey, because there's a lot of people that drink whiskey, and I really wanted to try tequila. The problem with both of those things is they both have a really high alcohol level, even the cheap stuff. The tequila that I had was like a 90 proof, and I can pretty much guarantee you the freeze dryer isn't going to work with it because it doesn't get cold enough to freeze it. Alright, so let's get mixing some drinks. Plus my drink's empty. Since you've stuck around with me, I'm going to give you my super secret, retired at 40, Martini Recipe. So the first thing you need is a good shaker. And you got to fill this shaker with lots and lots of ice. You always go 2 to 1 ratio. So I do 2 of whatever it is. So if it's 2 ounces of vodka, if you want to do a shot, like 2 shots and 1 shot of vermouth, and then just, if you want a dirty martini, then you just do a splash of olive juice. If you want a dry martini, you don't need any olive juice at all. You can just throw an olive in. I'm going to double it up, so I'm going to do 4 vodka. And then we're going to do vermouth. Make sure it's the dry vermouth. There's a sweet vermouth and it's disgusting. It's used for other things, but you want a dry vermouth. This is an actual olive juice. It's pre-packaged. You can just use olives right out of, or you can use the olive juice right out of an olive jar. This is about 3/4 of the way full. That's a dirty martini. Put your top back on. Make sure it's good and sealed, and just shake it. So you might be asking, how am I going to get this into the freeze dryer? And then I thought, ice cube trays. If I put them into ice cube trays and I freeze them, I'll have a solid, and I can put the solid onto the ice trays. Alright, so this is as good a time as any to tell you that if you've never been to this channel before, then consider subscribing. If you subscribe while you're there, click the bell for notifications, and that'll send you every time a new video comes out. And always feel free to give me a comment or a suggestion in this case. I always like hearing from you guys. Alright, no martini would be complete without olives, so we're going to freeze dry some olives too. If you have a good Bloody Mary recipe, put it down in the comments. I'd love to see it. So for mine, I'm going to do 2 cups of vegetable juice. And I'm going to do this in my new Vitamix. If you've never seen a Vitamix before, this is like the blender of all blenders. Alright, and then I'm going to do 3 of these of vodka. We're going to do a few dashes of hot sauce. Or lots of dashes. I also threw a couple stalks of celery and a couple shots of Worcestershire in there. Now I'm using this bigger container because I think a Bloody Mary will be better in this larger cube. But if you think about what we were talking about earlier, the alcohol level, you're taking vodka but you're cutting it down quite a bit with lots of other ingredients. So even if it's 40, 50, 60%, you're cutting it down a whole lot by adding all the tomato juice and other ingredients in there. Alright, first I'm going to pour some out for my dead homies with some Colt 45. I'm glad we squeezed that all in there because I didn't want to have to drink it. Next, a little of the bubbly. Alright, then we're going to do some 19 Crimes Cabernet Sauvignon. Alright, we are loaded, no pun intended, and ready to go. Alright, here's our true test, our first test, to see if this is going to work. That's awesome. It looks like everything froze. That's a good sign. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and get the freeze dryer started, let it pre-freeze for half an hour, and then I'm going to put these trays in. So I am going to adjust my final dry, just because this is pure liquid form. I'm going to do 10 hours. See what that gets us. And I'm going to do pre-frozen, obviously. Our pre-freeze is complete. I just need to flip these cubes onto the tray before I put it in. But I don't know, jury's still out. You know, I thought these were frozen solid, but they're still, some of them are still a little bit mushy. So man, I'm not sure yet. If I get them into the freeze dryer real quick before they have any more time to melt, our chances are probably going to be a little bit better. Ideally, these would all stay in this cube form. Alright, I need to get these in here as quick as I can before they have any time to melt. Alright, we'll see what happens. Well, we're all done, but we've got a little pool of water right here. It's never happened before, so let's see what it is. It's not looking good. Oh, there's our martinis. Actually, that's the martinis and the Bloody Marys. There's our wine. That is, I'm not sure what that is. Beer, maybe? for the champagne. There's the beer. There's a close-up of all of it. I really wanted this to work because I thought it would be really cool, but it almost looks like it burned everything. Someone's got a heck of a mess to clean up. Oh my. That's a big mess. The oil has lots and lots of water in it, and it's really cloudy. So when we were considering if this was going to work, we had number 1, number 2, but what I didn't take into account was number 3, which is sugar content, which in the past has been a very big deal because things with a very high sugar content tend to not do well. And what I didn't consider was alcohol has a lot of sugar in it, especially wine, especially beer, really any alcohol, because the sugar is what creates the alcohol. Well, they can't all be a great success, and with all failure you always learn something. So what we've learned from this is that anything with a really low freezing point, below what the freeze dryer will go to, obviously won't work. It makes an enormous mess, and I don't think even something like with a wine that has a low alcohol content and a relatively high freezing point is still not going to work. So unfortunately I've got to call it a fail, but I will say this is my first fail in the Harvestright. This is the first thing with 100% certainty that I can say will not work. So until next time, this is Retired at 40. Remember to live life simple. We'll catch you next week.